Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. I just thought we'd do a video asking why the Pgmol has not yet released the audio. And no, I'm not talking about the audio for the game between Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur at the weekend, in which there was quite an obvious huge error that VAR somehow, I'm still not sure how, but somehow managed to cock up. I'm actually talking about the audio for Everton's game against Manchester City a couple of years ago when Everton were denied a blatant penalty for a Rodri handball. I would love to hear what was being said in the VAR room at Stockley Park during those moments. I would also like VAR to release the audio in the game between Leeds United and Everton at Ellen Road last year when Damari Gray scored a perfectly good goal. And, I'd love to hear the reasons as to why that was disallowed and given as offside. I'd like to hear what the officials and the VAR official on that day had to say about that one. Whilst you're at it, you may as well replay the game between Everton and Villarreal in the Champions League qualifier all of those years ago. You may as well replay the game between Everton and Fulham earlier on this season when Everton were denied a clear goal. Michael Keane's goal was not given because the referee decided to blow his whistle early, despite the fact there was absolutely nothing wrong with that goal whatsoever. Obviously, none of this is going to happen. We're not going to hear the audio for any of the games I've just mentioned, and we're not going to see replays for any of the games I've just mentioned as well. And before we get into this video, I just want to say, because I know a lot of people will jump on this, I'm an Evertonian, this is an Everton fan channel, you're anti-Liverpool, X, Y, and Z. I actually think the mistake that was made at the weekend to disallow Luis Diaz's goal in that game between Liverpool and Tottenham is absolutely horrendous. I am the biggest Evertonian on this planet, and I despise Liverpool Football Club as much as the next Evertonian does, but I'm not stupid enough to sit here and say it shouldn't have been a goal, it was offside. It wasn't. It was very clearly onside. And do you know what? I've got absolutely no problem with Liverpool Football Club complaining and going to the PGMOL and, asking for answers and demanding certain things. I've got no problem with it. I do think it's a little bit ironic given some of the decisions Liverpool Football Club have got away with over the years. I mean, literally in that same fixture last year, Diego Jota volleyed someone in the head and should have been sent off, wasn't sent off, and a few minutes later ended up scoring the winner. So I do think Liverpool Football Club and Jurgen Klopp need to look, at where the bread's buttered and almost think, we've had some really bad decisions go our way recently, so maybe we'll leave this one alone. But generally, I'm made up that they've chased it up. They've tried to, hold people accountable, and they've tried to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because this is happening far too often in football now. Referees and VAR officials and the PGMOL, whoever them load of clowns are getting away with this week in, week out. Referees are making terrible decisions week in, week out. And Jurgen Klopp has had his press conference today, and he's spoken about how he believes this game should be replayed because this was an error that was unprecedented and not one that we'd seen before, etc, etc, etc. Firstly, I don't blame him for trying to get the game replayed or for saying the game should be replayed, because ultimately his team have lost the game that he feels they may not have lost if the right decision was made. The game won't be replayed. It simply won't be, because that just opens up a whole, a whole load of questions and a whole load of requests from various other teams. As I said, Everton could request that our game against Fulham on the opening day of the season is replayed because of that goal being disallowed against Michael Keane. We could request that various different games over the 25 years of my life be replayed because of awful decisions that have gone against us. So that isn't going to happen, and of course it's not going to happen. And what you'll find likely happens is the PGMOL will come out with another huge apology to Liverpool Football Club, and Liverpool Football Club will probably probably, and I've got no problem saying this because I don't care if anybody says, oh, Cam, you're a conspiracist, you're a this, you're a that. I'm not asked. Liverpool will probably get away with anything they need to get away with for the next couple of months or so. And by that, I mean they'll get penalties that are soft and probably aren't penalties, but they'll go their way. They'll have other decisions, like they'll commit penalties that won't get given. They'll, have red card challenges that won't get given. They'll have red cards go go for them for opposition teams, which aren't necessarily red cards. They will get a lot of decisions now that we will all sit there and go, not really sure why that's being given to Liverpool, but they'll get it because of how much of a monumental fuck up this has been by the Pgmol and the Premier League. It's disgraceful. It really, really is disgraceful, and as I said, I'm not Liverpool's biggest fan by any sense of the imagination, and I'm not particularly arsed that they didn't win at the weekend or that this decision made impacted the result on that game. But what I do think is that this is happening far too often in football, and it's happening far too often in the Premier League. And Jurgen Klopp comes out and says this is an unprecedented situation that I've never seen before. Well, let me just tell you something, Jurgen. This is something that is happening weekly in this league. Now, not necessarily to the magnitude of what it was between Liverpool and Tottenham, of course. That was a monumental fuck-up that, we've all heard the audio for in the last 24 hours or so. And, there is 101 questions to be asked about why that happened the way it did, why the terminology is the way it was, so that, at not one point do any of them officials, and it sounds like there's about 420 of them on that audio stream, not one point do any of them say that is a goal, give the goal. They're all using nonsense, jargon language like VAR check complete, let me draw a 2D line, do me a favour, just say, yeah, it's a goal, or no, it's not a goal, and it would make it much more easier. But these mistakes that are directly impacting teams are happening every single week. I'm led to believe that last night in the game between Burnley and Luton, I didn't watch the game, but I'm led to believe there was a penalty that wasn't given in that game. That was an absolute blatant penalty. There was a decision the day after the Liverpool and Tottenham game in the Nottingham Forest-Brentford game where Brentford were denied a blatant penalty and it wasn't given. So the Brentford now have the right to come out and say, well, we demand the audio for that situation. And if so, are the Pgmol going to provide teams with the audio every single time a team puts a complaint in as to say, we're not happy with that decision, we want to hear the audio from that situation? And how far back can that go? Because if I'm Everton Football Club now, and by that I mean the owners of Everton, of which we don't know who it is, but let's just say in a hypothetical world, 777 are the owners of Everton, which they aren't at the moment because that hasn't fully, being completed yet. But let's say they are the owners of Everton. If I was 777 now, owning Everton Football Club, I'd be straight on the phone to the FA and the Pgmol and I'd be saying, I want the audio for that Roger handball at Goodison. Because I'm not 100% sure that there wasn't some, magical sort of, manipulation of the game going on there. So I want to hear the audio as to why that wasn't given. How far back will the PGML go? Because the PGMOL cannot provide Liverpool Football Club with the audio for this situation, provide them with a big apology, and give Liverpool Football Club all of the evidence of what happened in that moment, and then not do that for other football clubs when other football clubs ask for it, can they? And by the way, as I said, I've got no problem with Liverpool Football Club, and I'm actually quite happy that Liverpool Football Club have approached this the way that they have. As I said, I think it's a little bit ironic because they have had ridiculous decisions go their way in the past that have left me questioning the the integrity of this league and the integrity of football in this country. However, what they have done in prodding the PGMOL and not letting this go and constantly mentioning it and feeding the media so that it's in the back pages every day and demanding the audio, etc., etc. They have now shown that you can go to the PGMOL, and if you put your foot down and you say, no, we're not accepting that as a mistake that we'll just forget about and brush under the carpet, we want the evidence, then the PGMOL will give. And what the PGMOL have done is they've shown that they are more than capable of providing the audio to the VAR decision to the team that is aggrieved by the decision. So therefore, that leaves it open now to any team to turn up to the PGMOL and say, no, this decision happened in our game at the weekend, we're not happy with it, we want the audio to it. And why they've got no right now to turn around and say, no, you're not getting the audio. because they've given it to them. But why have you given it to them but you won't give it to us? Do you have a preference to them? Is it because they're a bigger club? If so, then that's, you're giving preference to certain teams over others, which, again, is the definition of corruption in sport. So ultimately, as I said, I think what Liverpool have done is a positive, because they have now opened the door for everybody else to be able to say, well, when a decision goes wrong against us, we'll go straight to the Pgmol, and they won't be able to just tell us, sorry, move on, because we'll go, well, no, because you didn't say to Liverpool, move on, did you? You provided them with what they wanted, and now we want to be provided with what we want. I don't think the game will be replayed, and by the game I mean the game between Liverpool and Tottenham, because ultimately, ultimately, it would mean various different things happening. It would mean Tottenham would have to agree to that, and why would Tottenham agree to it when ultimately they went on and won the game? Would they replay the game with 10 men? Would they then replay the game with 9 men with 5-10 minutes to go? And again, replaying the game opens them up to a whole new situation where teams are just going to turn around and go, well, hang on, that decision got given against us 3 weeks ago and it was wrong and we weren't happy with it, so we want our game replayed. And if they allow it for one team, then they can't not allow it for anyone else, can they? So I think the overall thing to come away from, and I've had many conversations on this channel about VAR in the past, certainly when Everton have been specifically involved, and Everton aren't specifically involved in this situation, but we are somewhat involved because we are a team that have fell victim to a disgraceful VAR decision that we then since had an apology for. We had an apology after the Rodri handball, about 10 minutes after the game. We're sorry, this was the wrong decision. It should have been given as a penalty and a handball. Well, right, okay. Well, if Liverpool Football Club are going to get this game replayed, then there's no reason why Everton Football Club shouldn't have that game replayed. Not that I particularly want to play Manchester City, by the way, but I'm just using it as an example. Or why can't Everton now go to them and say, we want the audio for that? Because we want to know how that wasn't given as a handball, because it's such a blatant handball. And for those people saying, Cam, it's in the past, don't worry about it, why are you bothered, it's in the past? Well, isn't that the whole point of this situation? If we want things to change in football in this country, if we want things to get better, if we want the officials in this country to be, personally, in my opinion, I think every one of them should be replaced. I don't think there's a single referee in this country who deserves to be a Premier League referee, who was good enough to be a Premier League referee. Not one of them. I'd replace all of them. But if we want to improve them and give them the tools to ensure that they're not making these decisions, then we need to massively highlight when these wrong decisions are being made. We can't just say, oh, don't worry about that, we'll forget about it, because it'll just keep happening. So there's no reason why Everton shouldn't kick up a fuss about the Manchester City situation. There's no reason why Everton shouldn't kick up a fuss about Michael Keane's goal against Fulham. Michael Keane's goal against Fulham, we should kick up a fuss even more about, because it was this season. So they haven't even got the excuse of, oh, it was previous season, so we wouldn't be able to replay it. It's this season. It fell in this season. So there's no reason why Everton couldn't replay that game if the Pgmol and the Premier League are allowing other teams to replay the game. The big sort of main, I suppose, talking point and the conclusion and the solution to all of this, and the overall answer to every question that is being asked at the moment, is that the officiating in this country is simply not good enough. VAR, and I've said this before, and I remember doing a video must have been about a year ago when VAR was the topic of conversation and everybody was talking about it. And I remember doing that video and I said at the time, VAR is not the issue. I've got VAR in my house now. And you might think, why have you got VAR in your house, Cam? To make sure your ma's not offside when she's going into, the bathroom, or to make sure that your dad's, not tripped over your cousin or something. No, by that what I mean is I've got a laptop or a computer sat in front of me now that I'm recording this video on. And that's all that VAR is. It's just a computer with a system on it that allows you to replay games of football and slow things down. VAR effectively is like a television box, isn't it, really? Because on modern day television boxes, whether it be Sky, whether it be BT, whether it be Virgin, if something happens on a television show, you can rewind it, you can watch it again, you can slow it down, you can pause it at certain moments. That effectively is all it is. So when people say, get rid of VAR's not working, blah, 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 VAR is a computer. It can't work and it can't not work because it's not an AI system. It's not like the new offside system, which should be implemented. It's not like goal line technology. It's not a system that gives you a flat yes or no answer. It's a computer that is being ran by human beings, and the human beings are the ones that give the yes and no answers, and the human beings are the ones that are making these monumental fuck-ups week in, week out. So what's the solution? Get rid of VAR. All right, well, are we going to get rid of every referee then? Because all you're then going to have is the same people that were running VAR, running games of football, and that's exactly what we've had all this time, by the way. VAR isn't a new thing that is shocking and ruining football and blah, 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 blah. VAR is just the same referees and the same officials that were refereeing games of football, but this time in a studio looking at it on a replay. So football actually hasn't got any worse. It's just being highlighted more now because the errors are more obvious because these people are getting replays to watch back and they're still making those mistakes. So it doesn't become a question. There used to be a thing with refereeing performances where every time you tried to criticise a referee, that I'm going back 10 years, 15 years, by the way, every time you tried to criticise a referee, all as you heard back was, oh, they're human beings, the game's dead fast. You know, it's human error, it's this, it's that, it's hard to catch every single thing that goes on in a game of football, etc, etc, etc. And I used to sit there when I was growing up and I used to just think, no, these people are just incompetent. They're incompetent and they're terrible at their jobs. And no one would ever have it. It was always, do you know how hard it is to be a referee? Well, now we're seeing that that is actually the truth. They are incompetent and they are terrible at their jobs. So there's no point in getting rid of VAR. And they won't get rid of VAR, by the way, because whenever in life has there been a backward step in terms of technology, what they need to do, if they're going to get rid of anything, get rid of every single referee in this country. Get rid of all of them, sack all of them, and say, you aren't good enough, you failed multiple times, you're making a show of the best league in the world. Funny that, isn't it? The best league in the world. Get rid of them all and employ new referees. Whether that be referees from a different country, whether that be referees from different leagues in this country. That is the only let's get rid of that is possible. Can't get rid of the technology because then you'll still have the same mistakes being made just without the technology because it's the same people making the same mistakes. Get rid of the referees or do what we've all been saying for years and years and years. Don't have referees controlling VAR. Train a completely external team to come in to watch the replays of these situations and make it black and white for them. The offside shouldn't even be a case of VAR because there's a technology in place there that tells you within a second whether somebody's offside or onside. Same with goal line technology. There's already technology in place that makes decisions like that. The reason the Premier League don't want it in is questionable, but again, it questions the integrity of the Premier League. And when people go, oh, don't be silly, footy's not corrupt, don't be putting your tinfoil hat on. Well, if I was to say to you, right, okay, all these mistakes are happening every single week, and you want to get rid of them, here's a technology that will get rid of 99.9% of them. It'll tell you the right decision 99.9% of the time, and you turn around and say, I don't want that. Then I'm going to be sitting there going, well, you just told me you want to get rid of all the mistakes, but now you don't want the technology that's going to help you do that. Well, why? Are you wanting to manipulate results? Are you wanting to control outcomes? Again, I'm not saying anything. I'm not accusing. I'm just saying these are the things that, ultimately are banded about when the Premier League makes decisions like that. So that would be the situation with offside. Bring the new technology in. The situation with VAR for me would be very simple. You employ an external team. You train them up to know the rules of football, and then they watch a replay. They've got no bias amongst any team. VAR is the way it is at the moment needs eradicating. VAR doesn't need taking out the game. It doesn't need ripping up and never being used again. The current version of VAR needs eradicating for multiple reasons. Firstly, the people that are running it, referees that have already proven themselves to be incompetent over the last 30 years. Secondly, the language that is used in those VAR booths and on those audio streams is obviously a nonsense because this situation between Liverpool and Tottenham is the biggest example of that. It wasn't that they got the decision wrong, it was that they got it right, but the referee didn't understand that they'd got it right because, as I said, the terminology that they were using, VAR check complete, let's complete the VAR check. Just say, yeah, that's a goal given. What's with all the nonsense words that don't need to be said? As well, what's with the 700,000 voices on the stream? Why am I hearing 45 different people on that audio? Why isn't he just the referee and the VAR? Doesn't need to be a fourth official. Doesn't need to be a Premier League official. Doesn't need to be Gary Neville in there. Just the referee and the VAR. What's the decision? Decision is goal. Luis Diaz onside. Sound. Easy. Simple. No mistake whatsoever. And the third thing is, I've just completely forgot it. It'll come back to me in a moment. But yeah, as I said, eradicate the nonsense talk because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Replace the officials for me with an external team that are being trained up, that can understand the rules. I've got no affiliation to anything. And another big reason as to why things aren't working at the moment is because there is a conflict of interest. And no matter how many times referees want to say there's not a conflict of interest, there's not a conflict. I'm from Manchester, but there's no conflict of interest with me refereeing a Manchester United game. There is a conflict of interest. Mike Dean came out not that long ago, and this is another mad situation because this was completely thrown under the carpet, and this involved Tottenham as well, and maybe Tottenham and Chelsea should have done more about this. Mike Dean come out not so long ago and admitted that there was a sending off decision in a game between Tottenham and Chelsea last season where I think Cucurella's hair was pulled by a Tottenham player. And Mike Dean understood that should have been a red card. And he was on the VAR, but he didn't give that decision because his mate Anthony Taylor, who was the on-field referee at the time, was having a rough day. And he didn't want to make the game any worse for him, so he decided to not give that decision. That is match fixing. Mike Dean has just admitted to match fixing. And within 2 days, it was out the paper. Nobody was talking about it. Now, you have to think, and I do think to myself, if that was Liverpool or Manchester United, they'd have probably pushed that and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it, and it'd probably still be in the news to this day. But all of a sudden, you speak to people about it, and people go, oh yeah, remember that happened? What do you mean, remember that happened? A VAR official has come out and said he didn't give a decision because his mate was having a bad day and he didn't want to make it any worse for him. He has match-fixed the game. Had that sending off been given, which was the right decision, and Mike Dean, who was on VAR, admits it was the right decision, maybe the outcome of that game would have been different. Maybe Thomas Tuchel wouldn't have got the sack. Maybe Chelsea wouldn't have employed Graham Potter. Maybe they wouldn't have spent as much money. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe nothing would have changed. But you cannot come out as a VAR official and say, I didn't give a decision because I didn't want my mate to have a rough day. And then that just be swept under the carpet and allowed to move on. And in 2 weeks, you're refereeing another game. You can tell me I've got a tinfoil hat on and the Premier League isn't corrupt, etc., etc., etc. It's one or two things. It's either corrupt or it's being officiated by people who are incompetent and have a huge conflict of interest for one reason or another. Whether it's because their friends are fellow referees and they don't want to make certain decisions because it's their friend's game that they're VAR officiating, or whether it's because they are from a certain area and they might happen to have supported a certain team. Michael Oliver with Newcastle, for example, Mike Dean with Liverpool, Howard Webb with Man United. That was always levelled at Howard Webb, wasn't it? You're a you're a United fan, etc., etc., etc. So here's an idea. Let's not have referees in VAR booths. Let's have someone random in there who, okay, might be a football fan, but he might support Ipswich. And let's have him in the VAR booth for Brentford versus Bournemouth. He won't know who the referee is on the day. He hasn't got an affiliation with any of the clubs. He's not particularly asked what the result is. He's trained to make the right decision. He's not trained to think, oh shit, but I'm going round to Anthony Taylor's for tea on Wednesday, and if I give this, he might make the potato salad that I like. No. It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. And fair play to Liverpool for peddling it and for pushing it. As I said before, What I do think will happen now, and I'll say this now on the channel, and I've got no problem with saying this, just keep an eye on that Merseyside derby in 2 weeks' time. I'm not saying that Everton will be robbed in it, because we'll probably lose about 6-0 anyway, but don't be surprised if there's a decision that goes against us that shouldn't go against us. And don't be surprised if there's lots of decisions that go Liverpool's way now that shouldn't really go Liverpool's way, because the Pgmol in the Premier League and the refs are trying to sweeten them up because of what happened on Sunday. Or Saturday, sorry. The fix is simple. It's not get rid of VAR, get rid of VAR. Get rid of linesmen and bring in the AI system for offside. And get rid of referees refereeing games. The big problem here is referees. It's not VAR. It's Anthony Taylor. It's Chris Kavanagh. It's Michael Oliver. It's Simon Hooper. It's all of them. Mike Dean. All of those referees in this league are the problem. Not VAR. It's those referees, because whether they're making an incompetent decision on the pitch, which happens every week, whether they're not communicating properly through VAR, which happens every week, or whether they're wanting to protect their colleagues, which has happened before, and who knows, maybe it's happened again. Mike Dean was stupid enough to come out and admit it, or maybe he wasn't because nothing happened to him. How do we know that that's not happening every week? How do we know that, the VAR decision that was given against Luis Diaz, okay, we've heard the audio and there's no mention of it being, trying to, give the referee an easier day. But how do we know that the VAR official on that date wasn't thinking, I don't want to get him to give this, so I'm just going to say, go VAR check complete. And then when it's being completed, he's thought, oh, fucking hell, we're not going to get away with that, but at least he's not under any pressure. How do we know? We don't know. Because you can't say to me, don't be silly, Cam, that's conspiracy, that doesn't happen, because there's proof it happens. There's a simple fix to this. Get rid of every single referee in terms of as VAR officials. If you want to keep them as on-field referees, that's fine. Keep them as on-field referees. Their incompetence and their inability to referee football games is shown every week. But get rid of them in that VAR booth and put in somebody that is not associated with refereeing, in the slightest, knows the rules of the game, not associated with any of the teams that are playing, and can look at a replay and can go, yeah, that's a handball, or yeah, that's a penalty. Whether that's an ex-player, whether that's just, again, a fan, or I don't know. But one thing's for sure is the problem in this country at the moment, it's not VAR, because that's just the technology that is being used. It's the referees. It's those 20 people, or whatever it is, 15 people, that are monumentally fucking games of football up every single week, and have done for the 25 years I've been alive, and will continue to do so whilst they're still in charge of games of football. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So there you go. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Really interesting topic. I'd like to hear what you all have to think about it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would mean a huge, huge amount to me. If you could leave a like, that would be absolutely brilliant as well. And yeah, big thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.